Welcome back to Recruits HabsCast number 7. We've already got a week under our belts here, and
7 already.
That's right. And you're the last regular to come on is Chris Stevenson from Stevenson Media, longtime writer for the Ottawa Sun. I used to back when everybody used to read paper newspapers.
Remember those days?
Yeah, I do. And how long have you been doing? I don't know, and been an analyst on Sens games on the radio.
Oh, that would go back to the first season, Grant. I think,
There you go.
used to do intermission stuff with Gord back when the games were on CFRA and they started it out.
Oh wow!
I think Gord called it like the Stevenson Files or something, and we would talk about what was going on around the Senators, around the league, and of course back then I was still doing quite a bit of Habs coverage because when the Ottawa Sens started in 1988, of course there were no Senators here
Right.
in Ottawa. So actually my first beat for the Sun in starting in 88 was the Habs. I think I did every game home and away in that 88-89 season. Pat Burns is the
Oh wow!
is the coach, yeah, and
Almost won the cup.
losing in the final to Calgary, and
Right.
yeah. Then when the Senators came along, I switched over. I still did a lot of Hab stuff through those early years of the Senators because, of course, you know the Habs were a big story back then, right? 90, 91, 92,
absolutely.
93 win the cup. So did quite a bit of Hab stuff back then, and started doing the radio when the Senators came to town. So yeah, since day one of the Senators had my hand in one form or another of doing the radio stuff, and we'll be back again this year once again to do some of the pre and the post game shows on 1200.
Excellent. Burnsy was a colorful character, right?
Yeah, and just. Yeah, it's being in our business, newspaper business, podcasting, radio, whatever. You just like love having guys like that around because you never knew when Pat was going to go off, right? And he had such a colorful way of speaking, both in English and in French, and so many great stories when you just be hanging out from his days as a as a cop from, being hired to work in Hull and first day that he's on the job, wondering like, why did they give me like 12 shirts right off of the bat? And then he would be going to break up the fights in the bars at, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in Hull. And of course, the shirts would be ripped like right off of his back. So it didn't take him too many shifts as a rookie cop to figure out why they had given him 12 shirts when he started his job. Yeah. Just so many great stories going to break up a domestic dispute at one point and gets into the house. And then, of course, they're looking to take the husband away. And then the wife got all upset that they were taking the husband away. And it was at Christmas time. And I guess Pat said at one point, there were a lot of domestic disputes around Christmas time because of the holidays and the stress people were feeling and everything else. And
alcohol.
Yeah, they were getting ready to take the husband away. And she nailed him from behind with the frozen turkey right over the head. As they were trying to take her husband away. So
Nailed Burnsy or the husband?
Yeah, no, nailed Pat right in the head with the frozen turkey as they were trying to handcuff the husband and take him away. So that was what you were in for when you covered the Montreal Canadiens with Pat. Yeah. Of course, I went back to the days when he coached in Hull with the Olympiques. So
right.
Yeah, there was a bit of a history there.
Oh, for sure. The you were saying that they're celebrating the 30th year of the opening of the Palladium this year?
I guess it still would have been the Palladium when it opened, and then I think shortly after became the Corral Center.
Girl
But
Center.
yes, we'll talk today a little bit about where the Senators are at, where the Habs are at.
Yeah.
The fact that the two franchises are always going to be intertwined, going back to the Senators playing their first game against Montreal, and then the first game at the Palladium in January of 1996 was against the Canadians, and they'll try and honor that. I guess would be a way to put it when they celebrate the 30th anniversary of the building this coming January, and they'll play the Habs again.
Okay. I remember the first game quite well. It was at the Civic Center. They, of course, while they were building the Palladium, they started out at the Civic Center, and my main, like, that club, I don't remember a lot of players. Was Laurie Boschman on the original
first
team?
captain.
Yeah. Okay. I remember Boschman and Marshy, Brad Marsh, who ended up opening a restaurant in the well, I don't know what it was. I guess the Corral Center at the time, and
Marshy, for sure. That was our post game spot
yeah,
for years
definitely.
there.
Got to know Marshy when he was there. A great guy, and my my biggest memory of that first year was whenever Marshy was one of the 3 stars, he'd come out just bursting out of the gates, right?
Yeah.
He had the greatest celebration or whatever entrance for when he was named a star. I think they went out of their ways to make sure he was a star a couple nights where he didn't necessarily deserve it, just so he could see his little demonstration.
It felt like that was when he skated his fastest. He wasn't that great a skater. It felt like that's when he skated his fastest, was when they would open those end doors at the Civic Center, and he would do his sprint to center ice and do the big stop like you'd see on hockey cards, right? With the snow
Yeah,
flying and everything else. But that was that was Marshy's trademark. And then of course
yeah,
he had a brilliant also, again, the Montreal Ottawa theme. He had a brilliant All-Star game in Montreal that first year, and
right.
yeah, and that
Yeah.
was one of the highlights of Marshy's career was being on the ice at the Forum with all these superstars, and he winds up being one of the stars of the game.
Yeah, well, it was a fitting ending to a solid career.
Oh yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
was a he was a big boy, and when he got a hold of you, if you didn't get around him, you weren't going to the net.
Oh, and he reminded me of physically anyway. Serge Savard, you know what it's like. You shake hands with Serge Savard or Brad Marsh, and your hand would just disappear like
Envelop.
into one of those huge mitts. Both of them just with massive hands, and you could understand why they were so good in front of the net there. Once they got their hooks into a guy in front of the net, there was no way that they were going to be able to do anything.
Yeah, it reminds me of Gilles Lupien.
Oh yeah,
He used to scout. I'd see him at the rink in Hull
yeah,
on occasion, and one time he wanted to get around me. There wasn't a lot of room, and he just picked me up, and I mean, I was probably 225, something like that. Picked me up, and just like I was a sack of potatoes, and moved me over and walked around me.
yeah.
And he was in his 50s probably at the time. I thought, when he was 25, I imagine he had a pretty good, strong grip.
Oh yeah, and a tough
Big
dude,
man.
right? Tough dude. He had
Yeah, he was.
the big wingspan. He had
Yeah,
the long arms and the big wingspan, and yeah, he
oh
definitely played that enforcer role pretty well for the Habs.
yeah, for sure. The so rookie tournament this weekend. I was hoping to show the Sens lineup for the event, but I guess they haven't released it yet.
No, I don't think it's coming out till later on today. And but frankly, for me, um, with what they've been through the last few years, the cupboard isn't exactly stocked
No.
for the Senators at this point. You would know, you follow it much more closely than I do in terms of the prospects. But to me, there's only going to be kind of one name that everybody's going to be focused on as far as the Senators goes, and that's Yakimchuk.
Yeah.
And wondering after a really, really good camp last year. I remember at the intra squad game that they had at the Centre Slush Puppy in Gatineau, that he was one of the best players on the ice. And to me, the camp that he had
almost made the team.
He almost made the team. I was just going to say he put the Senators in a position which I'm sure they liked.
Yeah.
But a tough position of should we keep him around for a few NHL games and then send him back to junior because he was that close to making the team. And I know, and you can tell me what your intel is in terms of the kind of season he had last year. I know a lot of people seem to be kind of disappointed with the season that he had. Didn't get the invite to the national junior team, and from what I understand, the Senators, when they did decide to send him back, sent him back with some pretty clear instructions in terms of what they wanted him to work on. And, obviously he's a gifted offensive player, and that focus was to work on his defense.
Yeah.
And, from what I heard, it took him a while. To incorporate those adjustments into his game, and maybe that impacted his numbers, or maybe just impacted the way people felt about him watching him play. But he was he was given a job to do last year by the Senators, and that was the main focus. So I'm interested now, not so much in the rookie camp, but again in main camp, to see how much he's worked on that aspect of his game, because there was no question offensively, like he looked like he was ready to play. I can remember one play in that inter squad game where he came down the right side and just leaning on his stick, like no kind of backswing at all.
Right.
And just ripped one off of the post. I can't remember who was in nets, but they didn't even move. Like it was a rocket. So
didn't he score a rocket against the Habs in exhibition season too?
So it's there offensively, and I think that's what everybody will be looking at, starting with the rookie camp, and then of course with the main camp, is how much he's progressed, defensively. I don't know. Do you think he's ready to make? Do you think he's ready to make the jump to the National Hockey League at this point? Like, it just feels like the best thing for him to get his pro career underway is going to be to go to Belleville and play at least a half a season in Belleville and play in all the key situations and
what's he, 20?
And get that experience.
He's 20 years old, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I don't know. I think perhaps what happened, and I mean, I'm just speculating here, is that because he had such a good training camp and was, like, I think maybe the last cut of the Senators.
Yeah. Close to it.
He went back thinking, well, this is going to be easy, and I can dominate offensively and this and that, and maybe didn't quite have the right mindset going in, even though he had been told to dial it down a bit and concentrate more on defense. And he struggled with what scouts were telling me when they were watching Calgary. They said, he's not looking very good. They were in there looking at Kindle, and so there were a lot of scouts following Calgary last year.
Yeah.
And he was turning over the puck a lot. And that's always a red flag. If you're constantly turning over pucks, you're not making the NHL team till that gets rectified.
Yeah.
The first half, I mean, I was surprised he didn't get. How do you not be the last cut of an NHL team and then not make the World Junior team? It was a surprise to me.
Yeah.
And there were a few surprises on that team, and you know, what didn't surprise me was that they didn't win because of it. But I thought they needed more size and physicality, and I think Yakimchuk would have provided that. But anyways, it water under the bridge.
Yeah. He's 20 on September 29th, Grant.
Oh, he's not even 20 yet.
Yeah.
Start of camp or start of the season, he'll just turn 20.
Yeah.
So, Reinbacher, hey, he hasn't made it. He's going to be 21 in this month as well.
Yeah.
May need a little more time in the minors. Mind you, we missed much of last season, but I think they're on similar paths there where I think I think he's going to need seasons in the minors, maybe even a full year. Let's just bring up Ottawa's projected lineup while we're talking about this. Oh, that's the Habs. Just a second here.
Yeah.
There. So you look at that blue line. There's not really a spot for him unless he really, dominates the camp, right?
Right. And that's the thing with the acquisition of Spence.
Yeah. I think that's saying
that precludes,
yes.
That a real competition for a job there. Like, you look at their lineup right now and it's pretty much set. Like, you're not looking like there's a bunch of battles at training camp this year for
no, I don't think so.
Right. So, with the veterans that they brought in, I think Lars Eller is a good pick up there to give them some experience on that fourth line, because that's something that they've been lacking. But when I look at that lineup, Grant, the thing that jumps out to me is they are still a top 6 right wing away from being a really solid team. Like, I look at that right side, Zetterlund, I'm not sold on him being. I know he had 20 goals in San Jose. He only had 2 in his time with Ottawa after the trade. You look at that right side, and it's crying out for some help there. And
okay, yeah.
It looks like they're going to give Zetterlund every opportunity.
Yes,
to show what he can do with Stützle and Tkachuk. And there's no question, the guy works hard. Like, he was a buzzsaw in terms of the effort in the playoffs against Toronto. But he just in the viewings with the Senators, he just looks like one of those guys that needs like 10 glittering chances to score one.
I know,
right?
Yeah, I was surprised he had scored so many in San Jose when I saw him playing with Ottawa.
So, to me, and again, our theme here today will be, kind of Montreal and Ottawa, how they've been tied since the beginning of the Senators franchise, playing that, as you mentioned, that first game against the Habs and the first game at the Palladium, and a couple of really good, entertaining playoff series that they've had. I think this year it feels like there might be the opportunity for this rivalry to grow again, because it does feel like both teams are on similar paths, right, in terms of their improvement and becoming playoff teams, and in fact rising up. I think over the next 2 or 3 years, both these teams have the opportunity to move up and become powers in the Eastern Conference. But in Ottawa's case, it does feel like it's a little bit more of a slower process, and that's kind of that's been the approach of Steve Staios so far. And part of it, we've talked about this before, part of it is because of what he inherited from previous management, and Pierre, like most GMs, Pierre Dorion did some really, really good things, and Pierre Dorion did some not so good things. And you can't dispute the nucleus that Staios winds up inheriting in the
Yes.
likes of Tkachuk and Stützle, Shabbat, Sanderson, and all signed,
Right.
to what are going to look like in if not now, in the next couple of years as brilliant contracts, with those guys making $8 million when there's going to be guys in the league
The
whose
cap's going
production
up.
won't be as great as theirs, will be making twice as much.
Yep.
It feels
Yep.
like, right?
Oh, for
So
sure.
so they have had cap issues, and that's why, to me, this is still going to be a little bit of a work in progress for Staios. He hasn't been in a position, because of the financial situation and everything else, to make any kind of really big bold moves. Right? He's been filling in on the
Right.
edges by
Well, well,
by
that's
trying to
not
bring in some of those veteran guys like Eller and Amadio over the last couple of years, and David Perron. So they still need, to me, that big talent on the right side that can play with Tkachuk and Stützle. So
yeah.
patience required still a little bit for the Senators, yes. But I think, and you can speak to this, I feel like you can say almost the same thing with the Habs, because their glaring thing is a 2C, right?
Yes.
And that's not, again, like trying to acquire a top 6 right winger.
Right winger.
Trying to get a good second line center is just as tough, and I think both teams in that way mirror each other, in that patience is still going to be required, and until you find a creative way to fill that hole in each of their respective cases.
Absolutely. I think where Ottawa's got the decided edge is you look down the middle there, right?
Oh
At
yeah,
this
for
point,
sure.
the depth, like
Yeah,
Stützle, Cousins, Pinto, Eller.
yeah.
Funny, you mentioned Eller and you know, um, playoff series, and y- Montreal should have added Eric Gryba to their, th- tit for tat there.
Yeah.
I guess Eric is retired, right?
Yeah. I think he's hunting somewhere out in Alberta. He was a big outdoorsman. Um, yeah, and whatever happened to Player 61? Remember, that was the quote.
Yeah,
That was the
yeah,
quote afterwards
from the
from
Walrus.
Paul McLean about, maybe they should be wondering what Player 61 was doing, giving him that pass.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's, and again, as we've been talking about, that the Ottawa Montreal rivalry, that there's stories like that to tell. The line brawl here in Ottawa. Like, as much
yeah.
as people want to talk about the Battle of Ontario, I just feel like another Habs
Would
Ottawa
explode.
matchup in the playoffs is going to put the Montreal Ottawa rivalry right there with the Battle of Ontario.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
There's lots of good stories and lots of history to revisit there, and that's always part of it, right? The players may
right,
change, and they always do, but the fans don't. And things like those playoff series against the Habs, they wind up becoming part of a fan's DNA. And
right.
I don't think it would take very much to push that Montreal Ottawa rivalry up to where the Battle of Ontario is, which just got renewed after 25 years.
Yeah.
Fresher memories for this generation of Senators fans, because you just go back to like
Oh,
2015.
it would.
So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what these teams can do this year. Do you think there's going to be? I mean, I think the Canadians surprised a lot of people by making the playoffs last year. I think people would consider that they're a little bit ahead of schedule by making the playoffs. Do you see that there could be a bit of a step back for the Habs this year, or are they just going to keep upward trend?
Well, it's I think the difference when it comes, they both have depth and quality in their under 27 group, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Like the Sens have Kachuk, Cousins, Clevin, Sanderson, Pinto, Gregg, Spence, Zetterland, Marilyn, who are all under 27. Kaliev, Halliday, Sabrango, Yakimchuk, and Yannick are in the mix. Maybe one of them
Yeah.
makes the squad, right?
Yeah.
So they might have like close to 10 under 27 players in the lineup. The Habs have Demidov, Slavkovsky, Bolduc, Hudson, Gooley, Struble, Suzuki, Caulfield, Dobish, Newhook, Dobson, Doc, Jacki, and Veleno,
Yeah.
with Kapanen, Roy, Reinbacher, and Beck fighting for another spot. So
Yeah.
I think the difference there is the Habs have some under 23 talent.
Yeah.
Like you look at, Reinbacher, especially if Reinbacher and Kapanen make it, but Hudson, Slavkovsky, Demidov, Bolduc. Ottawa probably won't have any under 23
Yeah.
players this
Yeah.
year. So typically players 20 to 23 that are in the NHL make a bigger improvement than ones that are 23 to 27.
Yeah.
But conversely, players that are 25 to 27, like what Kachuk's right in his
26.
prime.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these guys are probably advanced, but I think what a key for the Canadians will be the under 23 talent. How much of a jump do they make this year? And if they make a significant improvement, like you saw from Stutzla,
Yeah.
from one year to the next when he was
Sanderson.
Sanderson, the
Yeah.
big jumps that they made when they were under 23.
Yeah.
If that happens with, Slavkovsky, Bolduc, Hudson, and Demidov, the Canadians, I think will challenge. I think both clubs are going to challenge for the top 2 spot in the East behind Florida.
Yeah.
I think the gap between Tampa, Toronto, and those 2 teams is only going to. I think those 4 teams are going to battle. Those are the 5 that are going to be at the top, I believe, in the
Yeah.
Atlantic.
Yeah.
And I think it can be any of those 4 teams that ends
Mm.
up in second place.
Yeah. I listened to those names that you list there. My immediate reaction is the natural talent level offensively on the Habs is way greater than what Ottawa has, right? I mean,
I think so.
Ottawa's got Kachuk and Stutzla. I'll get the Cousins in a minute, but in terms of the potential for offense and goals, and as the Senators showed, last year, you can improve defensively if the coach wants to put his emphasis on improving defensively, you can do it.
Right.
But I just look at that depth of talent.
Yeah, and that's not even
the offensive part too, right? And the offensive part from
Yes.
Montreal on the blue line.
Yeah, 360-point scorers.
There you go. Like that, to me, offensively, that puts the Habs ahead of the Senators, and as you pointed out, a younger team, and with a younger team, I know some people will look at it and say that can hurt you because of the lack of experience. To your point, you can also see improvement from within. So your team can improve with each game as those guys gain experience. I can remember having conversations with Brian Murray, who probably better than I do. But Brian saying, in his GM days, and even as a coach, when he had to make decisions in training camp about who was going to make the team and who wasn't, he always liked the idea of having like 1 or 2 young guys on the team, because that's the way he felt was the team was going to be better by the end of the year, just because those young guys were going to be better. And there would be that internal improvement from those young players. And as I think that's something that we sometimes overlook now. Um, it used to be when guys got to the National Hockey League, they were pretty close to finished products, right? And now over the years, as the league is skewed younger and younger and younger, um,
Cap,
the cap
having a cap.
wanting to have guys on entry level deals on your team. I think
Yeah,
as the league has skewed younger, there is that opportunity for a lot of growth internally. And listening to Steve Stais, who spoke the other day at the Senators golf tournament, that's kind of what they're hoping for this year, is that continued growth. Like, you know, Stützle for me is not close to being a
right,
finished product.
right.
I mean, Brady Tkachuk is still growing and learning how to be a captain and how to be a leader.
Defensive game.
Defensive game, Stützle is same thing.
Yeah.
Um, even
Pinto and
even like
Cousins
yeah,
have
Cousins.
stood
Yeah,
take.
Cousins is an interesting case. I know, people probably would have liked to have seen a little bit more production from him after he got over from Buffalo. But when you think about the adjustment of coming from the
Absolutely.
Sabres, where clearly he wasn't happy, and being plopped into the Senators, who were in the middle of a playoff race, and then make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Again, I think a player being here right from the beginning of the season and having a training camp under his belt, I think we're going to see a much better Dylan Cousins this year with the Senators than what we saw down the stretch. Not that there was anything wrong with what we saw down the stretch. Until you see a guy play like every night, you don't really have an appreciation of his strengths and his weaknesses. Dylan
Yes.
Cousins was a better skater, I think, than my impression of him was when he was with the Sabres. He gets
Right.
around the ice pretty well. He'll be physical, and to me, it's just now it's a matter of him finding some chemistry with some wingers with Ottawa, and I'm sure that'll be a work in progress through the early part of the season. But yeah, when you look at that middle of the ice for them. To
Yeah.
me, there's still lots of room for relatively young guys to continue to improve. And again, that's another parallel, another similarity between Ottawa and Montreal this year.
I think people underestimate just the young talent on teams when you see all these predictions. They
Yeah,
don't. They look at what well, those players had these many points last year or the year, and they don't necessarily consider that, especially under 23 talent, that there's going to be a jump in production. There's going to be improvement, and that the team's going to be improved just internally, as you say,
right.
right? And the Canadians also, I think which will also help them is that I don't know that another team in the Atlantic added three, like Demidov, Bolduc, and Dobson. Nobody added that much talent, I believe, to their lineup from the previous year. Yeah, Demidov was there at the end of the year, but I mean, we're looking at regular season. He
Yeah,
didn't really have a
yeah,
impact on their point total.
yeah,
So just the young group improving, like players like Gooley's a good example. Denny Potvin always said you don't really know what you have in a young defenseman until he's played like 300 games in the
yeah,
NHL. Gooley
yeah,
hasn't come close to that yet.
yeah.
He should only be getting better, right?
Mhm.
And Hudson, same thing, and even Dobson can still improve. Defensemen typically before the age of 27 are still are still getting better, right?
Yeah,
Um, Thomas Chabot from 23 to 27 had ups and downs. Uh,
definitely. And I thought, a lot of it was, I think finding the right partner. Like
yeah,
he had a great partner in Dylan DeMello,
right.
and he played pretty solidly. And then they made the decision, not to sign DeMello and traded him away, because I feel like because they felt like they had Zub coming. But my thing would have been, why not have Zub and DeMello, and all of a
Yeah,
sudden your right side's pretty solid. But anyway, they made that decision, and I feel like Shabbat from that point on was kind of like twisting in the wind. They weren't deep on the blue line, and we made a lot of the fact that he was playing those 28 minutes, some nights 30 minutes a night. And what's Thomas Chabot's greatest strength? It's his skating.
Skating.
He's not the smartest player. There's
No.
times where he makes some boneheaded decisions in his own end. But for the most part, he's a solid National Hockey League defenseman. He was forced because of the lack of depth to be a number one. He's not a number one. He's in a good spot now where he plays on a second pair. But having Jensen come in and really settle him down and be a good, dependable partner for him. I thought last year might have been Thomas Chabot's best year in the National Hockey League.
Absolutely.
Because he didn't have to play 28 minutes. And when I've talked to all kinds of players, defensemen. When you know that you're going to have to play 28 minutes, you're pacing yourself. It's human nature.
Yeah.
And to me, that took away from Thomas Chabot's greatest strength, which was his skating and his ability to transport the puck. Like he was not going to take off with the puck, knowing that he was going to go to the bench and that he had another 25 minutes to play that night. I mean, he was pacing himself. I don't think there's any question about that. And now that, he's on the second pair and Sanderson's clearly this team's number one and Chabot's been shifted down to that second pair. Great chemistry with Jensen last year, and doesn't sound like Jensen will be ready for the beginning of the regular season. I think that's why they make the move to go out and get Spence. But hopefully Jensen will be back at some point and they can find that chemistry again. But with Chabot going down to playing 23 minutes a night, we saw a completely different Thomas Chabot. We saw the guy that we saw when he was playing his best hockey, Grant, a guy who could take the puck and be his own exit plan and skate the puck out and carry it down into the other end of the ice because he wasn't pacing himself anymore. He could go that, really hard for that 35 or 45 second shift. So
you could substitute the name Chabot with Matheson with everything you were just talking about.
Right.
He's going to be knocked down. The acquisition of Dobson changes things also, and there's going to be a huge improvement just from the fact that the Canadians won't have to play a guy on his offside like they did last year. They had 5 left defensemen in the lineup a lot of nights. So Dobson, Matheson struggled at times last year in part because he was asked to play on his offside and he didn't have a regular partner. A lot of things this year, it's probably going to be him and Carrier. And if you look at this projected lineup, it might be the third pairing, right?
Yeah.
From a guy that was going 28 minutes a game to they're going to dial back his minutes, and I think you'll see less errors from him as a result.
Yeah, one of the things I always look at, and it's one of my kind of fundamental things when you look at a team and you try and evaluate its potential to be a contender. Up front, I look at a third line. You look at all the Stanley Cup winning teams, they've all, going back, well, I mean, we can go back many, many years.
Yeah.
I'll just go back to those Chicago teams even that won cups in the teens, great third line. Tampa, great third line.
Pittsburgh.
And, Pittsburgh, just keep going down the list. They all have great third lines. When you put that graphic up there, and again, when shifting
Ottawa?
and looking at a blue line, no, Montreal.
Oh,
like one of those things. So I look at a third line. How good is the third line? That's going to give you an indication. But I also look at the defense. Carrier on your third pair.
Yeah.
On the right side, that's pretty damn good.
Yep.
If that's your third pair, again, when you're looking at depth, like who have you got? Because in the playoffs, most teams are shortening the bench and they're going to their top 4 guys, right?
Yep.
And the third pair is going to get spot duty. If you've got a third pair that you trust that you can put out there on a more regular basis, what a huge advantage that is for a coach. In this case, Marty St. Louis. If that Matheson and Carrier are third pair, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it is.
Because I thought that deal, probably wasn't really highly regarded when they brought Carrier in and
changed the team.
Changed the team. Like just having that one guy, as you said, like changing the slotting. And here in Ottawa, like the emergence of Sanderson, as your number one guy, changes your slotting, and all of a sudden now that left side looks pretty good with Sanderson, Chabot, and Clevin, and I thought Clevin had a great playoff last year. He just, that was a huge question mark. Last year at this time, we would have been sitting here with them going into training camp, and that would have been the big question: is like, what's their third pair? What's their third pair going to look like? Didn't know what Jensen was going to bring to the table a year ago. Right. Clevin coming out of Belleville, where I thought he was good but not great, and then not knowing who was going to be the third guy on the right side.
Yeah.
Clevin's emergence really has helped Ottawa. So now you look at their left side, and I think it's pretty decent. Sanderson's a legit number one. Chabot's great on a second pair, and Clevin, really progressed. But he gives them something that nobody else does, and that's that size. You'd like to see him be a little more aggressive, a little meaner, take it out on some people now and then. But I think that's going to come. But, when you're a rookie in the league, you're not running around, getting in the faces of too many veterans or really asserting yourself. So I think if there's something that you want to see from Clevin this year is being a little more physical, imposing his physical will a little bit more. But you look at that group now, and that's improved. But boy, I look at Montreal's, and that third pair for Montreal, that's an indication that you've got a pretty good group of defensemen, don't you think?
Yeah, if Reinbacher makes the squad. If not, then you'll probably see Matheson up on the second. But even that, it's still going to be less. He's going to be playing less than he did in previous years. And Clevin definitely made a step. He's not. I wouldn't say he's Dion Phaneuf quite yet, but
no.
remember when
we saw him score with a couple of pretty good bombs from the blue line last year as well. So and I feel like that's one area of his game I think that he can expand on and will improve. Because you know what it's like. You're a young guy comes into the league, especially under Travis Green at this point, who's emphasizing the team playing better defense. That Clevin was just worried about not getting beat defensively. I think as his game grows in that way and he gets more confidence, I think absolutely. I think we're going to see more offense from. We're going to see more offense from Clevin.
Yeah, Gooley's in a similar boat. I think.
Right.
You'll see more offense, and what I like about those pairings too, Chris, is that there's they complement each other, right?
Yeah.
Spence is a smaller.
Yeah.
He's a bit undersized, right?
Puck moving guy. Yeah.
Yeah, with the big defensive defenseman. Chabot's the skater with the defensive defenseman. Sanderson's the skater, the offensive guy with the defensive defenseman. I like that. I like how there's a balance there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think about those great remember those great New Jersey Devils teams in the mid 90s, and they had that great balance on their team. All their offensive guys were on the right side, and
Danico
Scott Stevens, Danico, Colin White, I think it was, on the left side, and then you had a Niedermeyer and Rafalski on the right side, and that was their mix, was kind of all the tough defensive guys on the left and the good offensive guys on the right side. So I think that's a pretty good recipe for success when you've got that nice balance between the pairs. And
I
you
think
look at that,
Montreal too,
right? And you just put up that the Montreal graphic, and you can start talking about you can start talking about the same kind of thing.
Exactly.
Offensive guy on the right side in your first pair, offensive guy on the left, and then
Offensive guy on the left on the
on the
third
left
pair.
on your third pair. So
Yeah. No, it's very similar makeup, and you know, two two fairly new GMs, and like you say, I think Steos was a little bit hamstrung
yes,
by some things like not as Pierre had traded away a few draft picks and
yeah,
stuff, so they
yeah,
didn't. They have to restock the prospect cupboard, I think.
right. And they're still going to face the challenge of the uncertainty of what happens with next year's first round pick, right? Because
Yeah,
it's still it's still being forfeited because of the Dadonov deal. I'm going to go with the pronunciation that way. Um,
yeah,
so they're still feels like they're still facing a little bit of an uphill battle there in terms of restocking the cupboard. But
right.
they clearly had their priority last draft that they made the decision to use the pick and took Hensler. And
Yeah.
I think that's not a bad strategy when you think about you can't have enough good right shot. You
Well,
can't have enough good
exactly.
right shot defensemen. Um, you look at the Senator situation. Zoob's probably got a couple of years left. Jensen's getting closer to the end of the road.
Yep.
So you think about
Yeah, Kachuk
Hensler
and
and
Hensler.
Hensler in a couple of years might be ready to start pushing for a job when some of those other guys are ready to be moved on.
Yeah, yeah. I think Ottawa's window is, with that group that's 23 to 27. I think they've got the windows now.
Yeah,
They've
I
got a
agree.
five-year window. Montreal, I'd say there might be a 10-year window
Right.
there with that group. So there's not as much of an urgency to win now. But both
I
teams, I
completely
do
agree with
believe,
that.
I think both teams do have bright futures.
They do, and I absolutely agree that Ottawa's if not having entered their sweet spot at this point, they're really close. And I do. You're right. I mean, you look at the age of some of those spectacularly talented Montreal forwards, Slavkovsky and Demidov. I mean, these are guys just embarking on their careers.
Yeah,
And you look at the goaltending situation. Ottawa's got their guy. They signed Olmark to a long-term deal. The
hmm
the question there is the guy's never played 50 games
right.
in a season.
Yeah,
So to me that's the question around Allmark is can he be a little bit more durable? Can he um, he had one really, really great month of hockey from kind of mid-November to mid-December, and then of course he sustained the back injury and he was out for a while. That
yeah,
opened the door for Marilyn to really um, make the decision easier this season for them to move on from Forsberg
right.
and make Marilyn the backup. Because if you're looking for for keys to Ottawa making the playoffs last year, to me, Marilyn's right at the top of the list. He
Oh
came
yeah,
in and gave them like eight wins,
save their bacon.
saved their absolutely when Ulmark went down, because Forsberg could be um, decent and give you some really good hockey, but it was never sustained. Right,
Right.
there's too much inconsistency there. But Marilyn came in and made a huge contribution to save their season. So,
Yeah.
um, but I like Montreal's situation, and of course you got the kid um,
Dolbush
Fowler
and Fowler.
Fowler on his way up. Fowler's, I mean, he's got to be the goalie of the future,
Yeah, I
right?
think so. Yeah, that's the hope. Um, well, let's wrap it up soon here, Chris. I taken quite a bit of your time. Just in closing, I'd like there's a picture above your head there that
Yeah,
looks a bit familiar. Can you maybe tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I haven't. I'm not a memorabilia collector by any stretch of the imagination, but that is a picture of the closing of the Forum with all of the Canadians Hall of Famers, of course, on the ice. For anybody who remembers that, I was lucky enough to be there covering it for the Sun, and I don't know if you can quite see it, but it's been autographed in gold
Okay, the
Sharpie
white, yeah.
by all of the Hall of Famers that were there that night.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a pretty good keepsake of mine, and especially when you look at it and you see, given recent developments, you see Ken Dryden's autograph on there,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
yeah, I figured doing the HabsCast with you that probably wouldn't be a bad backdrop right there, and probably my favorite piece
Wow.
that I've gotten over the years, and I picked it up like at a little golf tournament. It was one of the silent auction item, and yeah, seeing that with all the names on there for somebody who grew up in Montreal and was a
I
fan of the Habs through the late '60s and through the '70s. That was a must have for me. So proud to say that it hangs on my wall.
Who would your favorite player have been when you were a young fella?
Wow, you know what? This is going to sound funny to you, but as a uh, as a young teenager who was very much a defensive defenseman, um, Don Ori was the guy that
What?
was
You only
one of
played
my.
1 year
I
with the
know, but
Habs.
he was like a shot blocking machine,
He was
if you can remember
in
that.
Boston.
Yeah, and
I do remember that. But he
that
only
was
played 1 year with the Habs, like
that was one of the things
yeah,
that I tried to do, like as a kid, was
okay.
block a lot of shots. So I'm not saying he was my favorite player.
That's what happened.
He
Blocked a
was
lot
a
of
guy who
good
I would
shots.
watch. He's a guy who I would watch closely and
Right.
watch how he went about his business for that 1 year. It
Interesting.
happened to coincide right when I was playing,
Yeah.
but that was a guy that I watched closely. But after that, I mean, and it's interesting the business that we're in because you'll wind up getting to know these guys later on,
Right.
right? So you know,
The
Larry
mystique.
Robinson, like what a great player and what a great guy and I
Yeah.
know Liam's Liam's got
Lined
Liam's
up.
got some great connections there, got him lined up. Um
He's gonna
and
talk
and
tomorrow,
again,
by the way.
I had
Don't
that.
miss that episode.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like Larry's golfing with Liam tomorrow, and then
Yeah,
after they golf, they're gonna sit in the clubhouse, and Liam's gonna have an interview with him
how great is
and
that?
talk about Kenny Dryden. And I
Yeah.
don't know if for after you finish there, what you were gonna say. I don't know if you want to say maybe a few words about Kenny. It would be a good way to end the
Yeah, and there's
podcast.
just what I was saying, really fortunate. And at the time when I started my newspaper career and I had that opportunity to go and cover the Montreal Canadiens. I mean,
Oh,
Robinson was still there,
yeah,
Bob Gainey was still there, of course,
Carbo.
Patrick Waugh, Carbo. Um, so you kind of made that transition from having been a fan to now this is my job and actually having like a professional relationship. And I think in the case of a few of those players, actually a friendship
Right.
as it evolves. Um, so when you mentioned about who are your favorite players, it's cool that guys that I followed in the '70s who were still there in the late '80s, and both Robinson and Gainey were kind of near the end of
Right.
the road, but got to know them professionally and personally, and just so much respect for a guy like Bob Gainey as well. Dryden, of course, was outside of the window of me covering his playing career.
Right.
I only got onto the Habs beat about 10 years after he had left, but then got to know him through the years, running into him at the rink when he was researching that CBC series that he did with Roy McGregor, and then of course in his work with the Leafs. And my recollections would probably be similar to what you've heard from all kinds of people who interacted with him. And it's just that he'd never use one word when 10 would do, but it was it was always so well thought out before he spoke. And I just read a piece by Lauren Rubenstein, who writes for Score Golf.
Okay.
And the piece that he wrote was just how the book, The Game, that Ken Dryden wrote, which I think almost universally is upheld as being the peak of writing about hockey.
Number one.
How that influenced Lauren and his writing about golf, and even how the structure of the game, where he kind of went like each day of the week, right, was the structure of the game. That Lauren said he basically was inspired to do almost the same thing when he had to write a book about Mike Weir winning the 2003 Masters, that he was, trying to figure out, what it's like when you're trying to write something. How do I get into this? Like, where do I want this to go? But often it's just, what's that structure going to be in terms of how do I get into this story? How do I want to tell this story? You search for that. You search for the structure. You search for the voice. You're looking for the way to spin the narrative in what you think is the most engaging and interesting way to do it. And Lauren wrote that structure of the game wound up being his inspiration for the way that he went about writing the book about Mike Weir winning the Masters. And that was basically Monday's the beginning of Masters week, and how it progressed through those 73 holes when Weir wound up winning the 2003 Masters in a playoff. So you look at how great a hockey player Ken Dryden was, and what he accomplished in such a short career. And then you read something like Lauren's piece today, and you realize like what an influence a guy like Ken Dryden had in so many different aspects of life. And we won't even get into all the
politics,
the impact he had. Yeah, exactly, politically. But there's a perfect example of the man being greater than the image or whatever, just as a professional athlete. If you had the time, he was always an interesting guy to a guy to talk to. But you never looked forward, just because it was so labor intensive, to transcribing your interview with Ken Dryden, because
he probably inspired a lot of journalists to learn how to transcribe, how to use how to use shorthand.
Yes. You wish that there would have been those transcription apps you have now. Talk to text and everything else when you were interviewing Ken Dryden back in those days. It would have saved me a few hours. But
headaches.
What a great how many guys are you going to say were a great hockey player and a great writer? Because that's true. And maybe, as brilliant as his hockey playing career was, his career as a writer and opening the door, pulling the curtain back on this game that we all love so much here in Canada, that ability to put into words, which a lot of us feel, but I think oftentimes can't quite verbalize. He had that gift of being able to put so eloquently, put those on a printed page, and maybe that winds up being his greatest
Legacy.
legacy.
Yeah. So well put, Chris. And on that note, we'll end our debut podcast. I had a great time, which I knew I would.
Me
But
too.
let's keep doing this every week if and when we can get you off the golf course and whatever.
This is the best, and Grant, it's going to be a struggle. This is the best time of year to
Yeah,
play golf. The courses aren't quite as busy with everybody back at
right.
school and kids back playing
Not as
hockey,
hot.
and it's not as hot. The courses are in outstanding shape. So yeah, I'm still hoping I've got at least another month of some pretty good rounds in me.
You're not going to be at the the prospect showdown this weekend?
No, that's your job.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will run into you at the rink
Now,
probably
what's your plan?
exhibition
Now,
game.
what's your plan for the rookie showcase?
What's that?
I said, what's your plan for the rookie showcase?
Heading
Are you gonna
down
do
on
some?
heading down Saturday.
Yep.
Got a hotel booked right downtown. So I'm just gonna be downtown Montreal for 2 days. Gonna catch the Montreal Winnipeg game and then the Toronto Montreal game the next afternoon.
Okay.
So
And people
gonna be
can look
fun.
forward to a complete breakdown of what you saw.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks
hockey
again,
season's here.
Chris, and we'll talk to you next week.
I look forward to the next one, Grant.
Okay, thank you.